The truth, the truth. Where can one find the truth? Well, certainly you can find it all over the place on YouTube, can't you? Oh, how do you find that little bit of truth amongst all the junk, right? YouTube, as we know, is full of people who think they know but don't. And there's some con artists in there. There certainly are people who are spreading stuff they know not to be true. But for the most part, it's people who are well intentioned and are trying to do. They're trying to make money. Certainly, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that, right? But they're talking about things they don't know about, and the danger is that it misleads a lot of people, right? That's why I occasionally have to delete comments off these things, because somebody will come on and say something that I know not to be true. And how do I know? Because of experience. I was watching a video of somebody else. He was a guy showing how to do a tile bath surrounds, and he says he was making this video because he has to deal with so many, what did he call them? Book soldiers, yeah, who get on, and he's been doing this stuff for over 20 years, and these guys come on and show their YouTube videos, and it's all wrong, and I know exactly how he feels about that. YouTube warriors, right? Keyboard warriors, YouTube commandos. Well, I want to say something about the cartels, and of course the lesson will come into that. I put up one, was it last week sometime, about the idea of sending our SF down into Mexico to fight the cartels. And somebody, so if you want to go see what I said about it, I think it's a horrible idea. I think that they have no idea. People who are talking about this have no idea. I'm not taking anything away from our special ops guys. They are exceptional, best in the world and all that. If anybody could do it, they could do it. But as I say, the IRA fought the SAS to a standstill in the north of Ireland forever because of many different things. If you want to know about that, well, watch my others. I'm not going to go through it here again. And the corruption is so complete in Mexico, and it extends into our own government, that approaching it from a military standpoint it's a quicksand that will suck us in deeper than Vietnam ever did, or Afghanistan. That is not the way to do it. But I had somebody leave a comment, and I don't remember whether it was on YouTube or the Patreon channel. And they said, if you really want the truth about the cartels, here's an excellent channel to go to and watch his video on, and they gave the name of it. I'm not going to give the name of the channel because I'm not here to bash him. He's probably a guy, trying to do his best. He's passing on information that he knows. Well, let me rephrase it. He's passing on information that he's heard. Okay. And so I watched it. And this guy, he's former military and former federal law enforcement. Now, he didn't say what federal law enforcement. Maybe he had others. I don't know. But, federal law enforcement covers a great gamut. Could be anything from the guy that stands guard at the door of the federal courthouse to the real deal super secret units. Let me take a sip, because shot placement is everything. Say those who have never been in a gunfight. So I watched it, and he had a guy on there, and I mentioned this before. Pierre, what was his last name? I don't know. It's Latino. It sounds Italian, but it's Latino. He had this guy on who claims to have done over 20 some years under the narcotics or kingpin statutes, 20 years in federal lockup. And he was talking about the truth of the cartels in America. And what he said was this. He says the presence of the cartels in the United States is so small, it's almost non-existent. Now, I could tell by this guy because I have experience, not because I've watched YouTube, okay? Not because I've read books. I could tell by this guy. This guy, well, let me say this. I just present you with a few things to think about, because again, it's not my desire to bash him. He was a kingpin. He did over 20 years in the federal joint over this. He's all wired into these guys, he says, right? And he comes out and he gets on YouTube and he starts spilling all the information about them. Ask yourself if that makes sense. Okay? Ask yourself. And if you come up with the answer, well, yeah, that makes sense, ask yourself again and think harder. Okay. So he's saying that the cartel presence in the United States is very, very small and there's nothing to worry about. I had already done one some time ago saying, if you have drugs, if you have fentanyl in your town, you have a cartel presence. What that means is actual members of the like actual members of Sinaloa or New Generation or Zetas or whatever, actual members. Let me put that in perspective. Back in the old days of the glory days of the mob, okay, going from the 30s through the 80s of what people call the mafia. Many of you don't know I'm writing a mafia book. Did you know that? Yeah. Why? Because I have experience. Yeah, maybe out this summer. I'm not sure. Be something good to read in the summertime. During that time, the number of made members, if you know what that means, who are actual inducted members of Cosa Nostra, very, very, very small. Very small. Let me give you an example. Now, I could go back if I wanted to really think about it and probably get a close approximation of the numbers in the New York families and Chicago and Philly and many other families. But let me give you an example here of something right in Kansas City. In the Kansas City outfit, in the Kansas City, the group, right? There were probably only 15 members of the group here in Kansas City, okay? And yet they ran the city. They not only ran the city, they ran the state. They not only ran the state, but they controlled the Teamsters unions. They controlled Las Vegas, along with a little bit of a couple of other families, okay? They controlled a lot of the... Now, the other families across the United States, they had proportionally about the same number of made guys. And yet they ran this country. And those of you who are old enough to remember those times and were tuned in enough, remember that, and you know that. And they didn't run it badly. I'll be real honest. There was far less corruption under them than there is in recent years under the so-called government. The streets were safer. The food was better. The nightclubs were better. Everything got done, you know. And it was a pretty good time. I'll be real honest with you. Because they didn't mess around with civilians. They didn't jack with civilians. A lot of the stuff that you see, you know, in the movies and TV is just not true. But with a very, very small number of people, they controlled the country. Now, some of you who are younger, or those of you who weren't tuned in at the time, to go, oh, no, I'm sure that's not true. Well, yes, it is true. And take it from somebody who knows or don't. That's, you know, you either learn or don't. This is the same thing with the cartels. And they control fentanyl and most of the other drugs that comes into our country now. Okay. How can they do that if there's only a few members? What this guy is trying to say, he's trying to say, oh yeah, it's just a few guys. You don't have anything to worry about. Why would he say that? And let me ask you this also. Why would the guy who hosts the show, the channel, have him on? And it was interesting. I watched it because it was like an interview, and the guy who was jabbering, this Pierre, whatever his name is, Rossini, I think his name is. He talked a mile a minute. He's like every snitch I ever knew. Man, he could talk his way out of anything, pretty much. Talk. And the guy who was the interviewer was just kind of like, oh, wow. Wow. Okay. So what happens when you have somebody who doesn't know interviewing somebody who knows so much they can run circles around you and make it sound like anything they want it to sound like? The reason that the mob was able to control the country is because even though there was a very small number of members, their reach was vast. Okay. They had associates, those guys who weren't made but dealt with them all the time. Okay. Their businesses were hooked into the mob. Their family ties were hooked into the mob. Their allegiances were through family or whatever, hooked in. And then beyond the associates, there were affiliates beyond them. And then beyond the affiliates, there were all the little hangers-on who kind of wanted to be a part of it, wanted to sound cool. You know, they weren't really a part of it, but they wanted to be a part of it. So they were fringers, you know. They were on the edge, and most of them were crooks and or businessmen or whatever that found it exciting. And they anything that they could do to act like they were hooked up or help or give a favor, you know. So a made guy wants needs a favor from somebody who owns a car lot, say. And he'll mention something to an associate who will mention something to an affiliate, and he'll mention something to this fringe guy and say, hey, would you happen to have a white over baby blue Mark V that a friend of mine could borrow this weekend? Some of you will understand that reference of the make and the color of the car. And of course, the affiliate is oh man, he knows who it's coming from, right? But you see, there's so many layers there, it would never get back to the guy. You bet, man. Even if he doesn't have one, he's going to find one. He's going to find one somewhere so he can get it, so he can do a favor, for the affiliate, for the associate, and then for the made guy. You see how that works? And it's the same thing. And because of that, just a very small group of people with the right contacts and the right solidarity was able to control, essentially, an entire country. I don't think that they didn't. It's the same with the cartels. The way you fight the cartels is not militarily. But that's not really the purpose of this video. It has to be, but the way you do it is economically and politically. Did you happen to see where Claudia Sheinbaum, the Marxist president of Mexico, has now they've passed laws saying anybody that comes into Mexico to enforce whatever it was, I don't know. She's setting it up for our guys to be criminally prosecuted in Mexico and imprisoned in Mexico. Okay. The cartels are such a part of the Mexican national fabric that you can't remove their threads from the rest of the fabric. It has to be an all around. Well, it's hard. I don't really want to say what I want to take here. I think it could be done. I'll do a separate one on that. Maybe I'll just do that on Patreon. But don't fall for this stuff. These people who say, "Oh, don't worry, it's no big deal, and we can go down there, we can take care of them." No, guys, it's going to be the biggest mess you've ever seen. It will be the absolute biggest effing mess you have ever seen if we try to address this militarily. I know what I'm talking about. So be careful of what you listen to. I'm probably going to go back, and this is nothing against the person who put up that suggestion. I'm going to go back and find that suggestion. If it's still up, if I find it, I'm going to take it off. Not because I'm not faulting the person who did it. I mean, the guys on the video came off as very believable to people who don't know any better. Okay, so thank you for trying to help, but you have to be aware. Well, you have to be aware that without experience in a situation, you have no idea what's right or what's wrong or what's true or what's false. So be very, very careful in what you listen to, what you believe. You're going to listen to everything. Make sure you're careful about what you believe. And this goes with so many things that I talk about. It goes about firearms. It goes about self-defense. It goes about general preparedness. It goes about money. It goes about gold. It goes about 9mm. It goes about so many things. Okay, the ones who don't have the experience are always able to sing a very pretty song for the ears of those who also don't have enough experience to know that they are blowing smoke. So don't let any smoke be blown up your skirts, okay? Be careful what you listen to. Be careful what you believe. Because if you believe something that's not true, you're not prepared to deal with it, right? Okay, very good. And as I say, at the end of each one of these, we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. But you can't prepare well unless you have the right information. And in order to know whether you have the right information or not, you need to be able to discern the difference between truth and BS. And just too much of what you hear is the latter. Okay? You all have a great day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.